Hi everyone, it's Shannon and welcome to today's video. So I'm very excited because I have a new alter ego palette and this is MISTHAVEN. And look at this artwork, isn't that like gorgeous? But anyway, we have another alter ego palette and this one is MISTHAVEN. So I think it looks very appropriate for, you know, Halloween coming up. It's October, well, I'm recording this October 1st. I think this video is gonna go up on October 2nd, but let's get into it. Okay, so the new alter ego palette, as I mentioned, is called MISTHAVEN. It is coming out October 3rd, 2024, just in case you're watching this later on. And it is inspired by Pretty Grunge palette. So this is actually just the box, but this is the Pretty Grunge palette from Huda Beauty that came out, I guess, about a year ago. So this one is inspired by, which in some words is kind of a dupe, but I use inspired. I like that word because that's kind of what it is. But the Pretty Grunge palette is $69. And while I don't have a price yet on MISTHAVEN, going on their other inspired by Huda Beauty palettes, it's probably going to be $24. I do have a promo code for 10% off. It's Shannon10, so you can save 10% off, $2.40. So it's going to bring it to like $20.60. I think that's what it is. So anyway, this is the palette. Now I have already done, oops, I just dropped the insert. I have already done my swatches, but this is the palette and let's go ahead and compare it to Pretty Grunge. Okay, so here is the side by side to Pretty Grunge. It is it's pretty close. Yeah, pun intended. But there you go. Now, before I did like swatch comparisons, I actually did a side-by-side yesterday on my couch. I actually have a brand new Pretty Grunge. That's not this one. So I did a side-by-side. So here it is, just the palette by itself. Now I do have some swatches. I did some swatches earlier today of the palette of swatches with Pretty Grunge, kind of comparing all the shades. I'll talk about that later. But you know, this is, again, I've talked about this. This is $69 and this is going to be $24. So is it going to be the same quality? No, it's not. It's never going to be. But if this is a palette you thought was pretty, but you didn't want to spend $69 because you weren't going to use it that often, then maybe this is something you want to try. So that's what I'm going to do. What I always do is I'm going to do one look on each side, one with Pretty Grunge and then one with MISTHAVEN, and kind of just show you same exact look, same shades, or the same like comparison shades, and see how it compares. Now I will say, while the mattes are very similar, there's definitely a difference in quality. When I was swatching, you know, and if you've watched my other videos, I've swatched live on camera. I did a little bit different today. I did do them previously, and I wanted to make sure I did them in natural sunlight because a lot of times I've messed up on camera and I've done the wrong swatches. So I want to do it, and honestly, I'm glad I did because there was a couple times where I did mess up. Now with the MISTHAVEN, there was a couple times where I kind of had to swatch here like that, but that's for the matte, not a big deal. Where the big difference comes is in the shimmers. The shimmers is where the biggest difference is. So this, you know, I'll show you the swatches in a second, but that's where the biggest difference is. And if you are one that likes a lot of shine and a lot of impact with your shimmers, then this is probably going to be a pass. However, if you are someone who doesn't like shimmers, or maybe this was too much, like maybe this was something you liked, but the shimmers were going to be a little too much, then maybe MISTHAVEN's for you. Or maybe this was a color story you liked, but it was something that you were probably going to use only once or twice, which I have to admit, I've only used this once. I got it a year ago. Now, to my defense, I bought it when it was arrived. I bought it on Sephora. It arrived shattered, like completely shattered. Like 3 or 4 shades broken. The palette was broken, like it was unusable. So then I returned it. I contacted Sephora. I had to send it back, and then they sent me a new one. But by the time I got it back, there were so many videos and people had received it in PR. I just never got around to doing a video. I did use it. I like it, but I've never picked it up since. So if you're going to be like that, then maybe you don't want to spend $69. Maybe you want to spend $24 or $21.60 if you use my promo code. So that's what we're going to talk about today, what the comparison is, what you're going to get with it, and then what's worth it for you. Okay, so as I mentioned, I already did swatches in natural sunlight. So here is the palette. And what I did is I did the first 9 swatches because my arm is only so big. So I did the first 9 swatches, which are all mattes. And then I did the second set of 9. So the 6 shimmers are going to be the first set. And then you have the 2 mattes and then that 1 black cream shadow. So here they are. So here is the first set of 9. Again, these are all mattes. You can see they look good. They swatch really nice. You know, nothing, you know, they're pretty much the same in the Pretty Grunge palette. And then you have second set of 9. So this is where you can really see that the shimmers are pretty basic. They're basic shimmers. You know, you're going to get some nice light. The first 3 are nice light and airy, bright shimmers. And then the second set of 3 are kind of more sultry, you know, kind of deeper shimmers. And then you have the dark brown matte, the black cream, and then the black matte. So those are the swatches of the Misthaven palette. So next up are going to be the swatches that I did compared to Pretty Grunge. So what I did here is I did by 6 because it was going to be 12 swatches each. And again, my arm is only so long. So I did the first 6. So the first are going to be the first 2 columns. So 1 and 2. And then the second set is going to be column 3 and then column 6 because I wanted to put all the shimmers in one swatching comparison. So again, so the first one is going to be 1 and 2. The second one is going to be 3 and 6, and then the last one will be 4 and 5. So here are the swatches compared to the first 6 mattes. Again, I think they're all pretty similar. The ones from Misthaven they did need a little bit more, you know, swatching. They are the first one, and the second one will be the Pretty Grunge. So you can see that the first one in each shade is the Misthaven, the Alter Ego shade, and then the second one is the Huda Beauty Pretty Grunge. But they're all pretty much the same, nothing, you know, special. I think there's maybe some minor differences, but nothing you're really going to be able to see on the eyelid. Now the second swatch here, again, you have the 3 mattes in column 3, and then the 2 mattes and the 1 cream shadow in column 6. Nothing. Now I will say the swatches for the Misthaven, the darker shades do swatch better, and I actually like the cream better in the Misthaven than I do in the Pretty Grunge. The Pretty Grunge is a little wetter, it's a little shinier, and it took longer to dry down. So I actually prefer the one in Misthaven. Now that means maybe in 6 months it's going to be dry. I don't know, but initially I do like that one better. But for the most part, again, the swatches are very similar. Now this is where you're going to see the difference. This is columns 4 and 5. This is the shimmers. This is where it's really different. And the one that I will say that is the biggest difference is that second shimmer. It is just night and day, but they swatch different. I really had to kind of dig into the Misthaven to kind of get some color. There's some duochromes in the Pretty Grunge, which you don't have in the Misthaven. It's just a big difference. Now, you can see in these swatches, they're not that different in the swatches. So when you get it on the eye, will you be able to tell? I don't know. I haven't tried yet. I think you will, but again, it just depends on what your budget is and what you're looking for. And, you know, maybe you want a more subtle shimmer. So it really just depends on you. So those are the swatch comparisons in natural sunlight between Misthaven and Pretty Grunge. Now, before we get into the actual application, I did want to kind of show you live on camera the 2 biggest differences. So I believe that Twinkle is the one that I was telling you is the Rebel, and you can kind of see like it just doesn't pick up. Now it could be that's a swatch, and then when you try and get it on the eye with a brush, it works really well, but like you kind of have to dig to it. And even Cluster, which is the other one, this one is a little better. So again, it's good, not great. But then you have Rebel. So Rebel is this one right here. This is my favorite shade in this palette. And this is, you can see, it's wow. So that's the big difference in this palette. But again, is that worth what, $45 between $69 and $24? I think that's the math. Is that one shade worth $45? You know, maybe, maybe not. It really just depends on what you want and what your needs are. The mattes are very similar. I would say for everything else, like that's the shade that is the biggest difference. That's absolutely the biggest difference. Everything else is kind of similar. So I'm not going to compare those shades because like it just wouldn't be a fair fight, to be honest. But I'm going to try and do a look that I think our shades are comparable so that you can kind of really see, like, can you get a similar look with the other shades? Okay, so I just used my Alter Ego eyeshadow primer. I love this. They sent me another one. I think I have like 3 backups now because this is my second or third that I've had. I use this on honestly with everything. It's just a really great eyeshadow primer. I love the applicator. It just makes it really easy and it works really well. So if you do pick up a palette, I don't think it's worth making an order just for this, but if you do ever pick up a palette, definitely pick up one of these. It's really good. So what I'm going to do here is I am just going to go straight in the second column. I really love the layouts of the Alter Ego palettes for one main reason. I think that the layouts of, you know, other palettes, Huda, Natasha Denona, everything else, I think they are more aesthetically pleasing. However, from someone who is kind of I wouldn't say I'm a novice, an intermediate with eyeshadow, this makes it easier for me to kind of look at and think, okay, I'm going to go right down this row. I'm going to go down this column. I'm going to go down this column. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go down the second column here, and those are the shades that I'm going to use today. So I'm going to start with that Ember shade, which is the second shade in the second row, and I am just going to apply it all over my crease as the transition shade. I also have my handy Sigma switch here so that I can use the same brush. Now I am using my rougher brushes, which are my preference. The last time I did use the Alter Ego brushes, which were good, but I definitely prefer my rougher or my Sigma brushes over those. Those are good for like a starter set, but you know, they're not necessarily the best. So I prefer these. And what I can tell you with good brushes is that you can really make any palette work with a good set of brushes. It really makes a difference. So anyway, so this is the shade Ember, and but again, you can see it's applying really, really well. So in Pretty Grunge, the corresponding shade is Love Anarchy, and I am just going to go now. These are more pigmented, so I need to make sure I go a little lighter handed, just because it's the one thing I will say is with Alter Ego is that if you are more of a novice, it's a little bit more beginner friendly because they aren't as pigmented. So you have to build up the shades, which makes it a little bit easier to not make an error. Okay, so here are the 2 transition shades. I think they look very, very similar. And honestly, they applied a little bit of, you know, pretty much the same. I did have to kind of go in a little bit more to match the shade. So I did have to kind of build this one up a little bit more. But, you know, for the most part, you can achieve the same look. So what I'm going to do now is go in with this dark shade Nutmeg, the one on the bottom row, second column. And now the darker shades, I will say, swatched better and had more pigment. So I want to make sure I go light-handed on these as well. So again, this is going to be a Nutmeg. Okay, so here is the shade Nutmeg, and I'm going to go in now, and the corresponding shade is Hope. So again, I'm going to go very light-handed because these darker shades really pack more of a punch. And I'm going to do the same thing. And I just did, again, the same look I always do. Transition, outer corner, and then a shimmer. Okay, so here you can see the outer corner. This one is a little bit darker. Try to match them up as much as I could. But this one just sheared out a little bit more. But I think they're very, very close. Again, Maybe you wouldn't, maybe you notice, maybe you don't, I don't know. But let's go ahead, and what I'm gonna do is I am going to use the corresponding shade for Strong AF right here. We all know what that means, which is in the Misthaven palette, it is going to be Moon. And I am going to go in with a brush with the Alter Ego palette, because I do feel like with the Alter Ego palette, sometimes they do apply better with a brush. I'll go in with my finger if I feel like it's not applying, but I am gonna go in with a brush at first. And this is one of those, again, the shimmers in this palette I think are good, but compared to the Huda shimmers, it's really hard. So, but we'll see. We'll see how they compare once they're on the eye. Okay, so here is the shade Moon. Now I'm gonna go in with Strong AF. We all know what that means. I'm gonna do the same thing. I am going to apply it with a brush. Now this one is a little bit more powdery, so I'm gonna be a little bit more careful, and then also, you know, we'll see. I think that it would have been better if I hadn't done my base makeup, but I already did. So, but you can see there, I can already see that there is a difference. Not a huge difference, but we're gonna bring in the professional. We're gonna bring in my son Ryder. He loves being a part. I think the last one I did for Daylight, he was sleeping, so I wasn't able to bring him in, but I will be bringing him in to see if he can tell the difference. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to go in with the inner corner with the shade Cluster, and then on the Pretty Grunge palette, it is Maverick. And I'm doing on the inner corner and the brow bone. I don't know, it just fell, but I'm gonna do that. So that is the shade Cluster. And then let me just go ahead and do the switch. And then now I'm gonna go in with Maverick and go in with the inner corner here. And again, on the brow bone. And then I'm gonna go and put on some mascara. And then we will come back with my son Ryder, who is the professional. I think he's gotten all of them right. So we will see if he gets it right as far as which one is the more expensive palette and which one is the, well, we'll just say least expensive. Okay, so we have our special guest, the one that everybody loves. What's your name?
Ryder.
Ryder, and how old are you, Ryder?
I'm 8, but I'm gonna be 9 soon.
You're gonna be 9 soon, and you haven't, what grade are you in now? You just entered?
3rd.
3rd grade, so he's in 3rd grade. Okay, so the big test today, which one is the least expensive and which one is the more expensive eye? Okay?
This is hard.
It's hard.
One is more purple and one is more gray.
One is more gray and one is more purple. Okay, good observation. Good observation. Which one?
I would say this one's.
This one's what?
This one's more expensive. This one's less expensive.
You are undefeated. You are undefeated. That means you got it right.
Oh! Yay!
Yes, he got it right.
I just noticed. I actually noticed there's a little bit more glitter here, and I'm like,
But they're very close, right?
Yeah.
They look very close. Okay, good. Okay, well, say bye, everybody. Thank you.
bye.
Okay, so Ryder has spoken. He was able to tell, but I will say he is undefeated, and he's also a child that is very detailed. Like, he notices these small details. So, and he also always notices my makeup. So he always is asking me like what I'm wearing and stuff like that. So he's very into those types of details. But anyway, so he did say that he actually was second guessing himself because he thought this one was a little bit more glittery. But on the eye, I think they're very similar. Now, I will say, the shimmers, there are some shimmers that are huge difference, but I picked a shimmer that I thought was, I noticed the differences in the swatches, but when it's on the eye and you apply it, you can definitely, it's very subtle and you're going to get a similar look. So I think that just depends on what you're looking for. If you're like me and you bought this palette or you were thinking about buying this palette, but it's probably going to be a palette that you use once in a blue moon, then maybe the Misthaven palette is for you. Then maybe it's one that this is just gonna be like, you want the color story, but it's not a color story you're gonna wear a lot. then this is probably for you. Or if you're someone that the bright, you know, bold shimmer is just too much, like it's just not. And I know a lot of people like that, where they want a subtle shimmer, then this is, you like the color story, but you want more of a subtle shimmer, then this is for you. Now, if you love that bold shimmer, but you didn't want to spend $69, but you want that bold shimmer, you're not going to get it in this palette. So I did receive this in PR, so I did want to say that, but I also want to be honest. Like, I want to be honest. It's a good palette, but it's also $24 as opposed to $69. So you really are, you know, getting what you pay for. But for $24, you're really getting a great palette. So, you know, it just really depends on what you're looking for, what you want. But if you think you're going to get, like, if you have the Pretty Grunge palette and you want the same exact quality in a $24 palette maybe to travel with, you're not going to get the same impactful shimmers that you're getting in Pretty Grunge. So again, trying to be honest, trying to be realistic so you know what you're getting. However, but if you do want to purchase it, there's an affiliate link down below, and my promo code will save you 10% off of any order, which is Shannon10. And if you use my link, great. If you don't, or use my promo code, great. And if you don't, no worries about it either. You know, I appreciate that you watched this video. So with that, if you like this video, click like, click and subscribe. That way you get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye everyone.